Hello,
Hello.
how are you? How is everyone?
Good. How
Sleepy?
are you?
Yeah,
My
I couldn't.
my lighting is a little intense here at in the dark.
Hi, John Patrick. How are you?
Hi, good.
Yeah,
How are you?
Oh,
good. I wasn't able to stay awake. I tried.
I fell asleep with my daughter. I put her to bed and fell asleep. So,
Cool. Yeah.
all right.
So, do we know? Do you have to wait for? Is Tanakar on the other side or something?
I'm
Or
not
Pila?
sure.
Are we live? Are we?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Where are you calling from, Jean Patrick?
From Washington, D.C.
Ah, nice.
So, same time
What
zone.
Uh,
what part of town?
So, in fact, I'm just outside. I'm in Capitol Heights, Maryland.
Cool. I would normally be spending my winter break or a good part of it down in Washington, but
Mm,
not this year.
yeah. Normally, I would be in France, but yeah.
did you get any snow there?
uh, Maybe for 1 hour. So, like this amount of snow and it lasted for 3 hours, and it was gone. So it turned to rain.
Yeah.
So, are you okay in New York State?
Actually, none of us are in New York.
Really?
I
No.
was
Oh,
until this morning, and now I'm in Connecticut with family.
oh, I see.
Yeah, and I am in Colombia.
Yeah.
And I am in Providence, Rhode Island, which is
Okay.
near Boston.
Yeah.
I'm writing to Piawad.
Okay.
Should we check YouTube, see if we're there.
I don't know, maybe if, is it
I think we're live. We're there.
We are. Okay.
Yeah,
are we? Oh, that's funny.
we're there. Yeah.
Nice.
Is this, it feels like a performance, like, of this, the theme of this discussion,
Right.
levels of
Of
virtuality.
virtuality.
um okay, so I guess officially I am the moderator of the discussion, so I will open things up. um so welcome everyone who's tuning in. This is panel discussion as part of the Thailand New Music and Art Symposium happening this week. And the theme is Ara, Virtuality, and Reality. Um, and maybe we should do introductions one more time in an official manner. Uh, I'm Laura Cetilia. I'm composer first year at Cornell um, University, but I am calling from Providence, Rhode Island. And you want to go next, Sergio?
So I am Sergio Cote. I am a DMA in composition candidate at Cornell University. Composer, of course, and right now I'm in Bogota, Colombia, where I am originally from.
John?
Um, I'm also in my doctoral studies at Cornell University. And I'm a composer and performer, and I am calling tonight from Cote.
So hello everyone, my name is Jean-Patrick Besingrand. I'm a PhD candidate in composition at the Graduate Center, City University of New York, and PhD candidate in musicology at the University of Paris-Sorbonne. And I'm calling from Washington, DC.
All right. So I thought I would first start things off with just some general definitions of these nebulous words. So I'll start with virtual. And virtual is described as almost or nearly as described, but not completely or according to a strict definition. And aura is described as the distinctive atmosphere or quality that seems to surround and be generated by a person, thing, or place. And for me, the first thing that came to mind when I saw the word aura in this panel discussion was the writing by Walter Benjamin. It's an essay he did in, I think, 1936, called The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. And he describes the aura of natural objects as the phenomenon of a distance, however close it may be. And I want to address that dichotomy of distance and closeness later. And he gives this beautiful imagery of what aura is, and he says, if while resting on a summer afternoon you follow with your eyes a mountain range on the horizon or a branch which casts its shadow over you, you experience the aura of those mountains, of that branch. And he continues on in the essay talking about the contemporary decay of the aura through reproduction. And for me, that relates to maybe virtuality. So we can talk about that idea next. But I'm sort of obsessed with this word aura and wanted to get all of your ideas about what aura means, especially within your musical practice. If it's a concern for you, some questions that came to mind, like is composing music a way of trying to replicate an aura of something? Are we aspiring to replicate the natural world through sound? I can just open it up with that vague question. See if anyone has something to respond with.
I wonder if you don't mind just spending a brief moment on the definitions you provided, which I think are interesting before we kind of go into more particular discussion. I guess I just, as you were, that quote you were reading about the aura of natural objects and the question of distance made me immediately start thinking about, wonder about that aspect of distance, either as a subjective sense of distance, as in, from something, or as a span or a distance of something, as in like a quality of X, not in relationship to myself, which I find myself thinking about aura in that sense a lot as well. Aura is something that we tend to describe very subjectively a lot. And I wonder how productive that is sometimes. Sometimes I want to think about this in terms of something more categorical or meta-categorical, or something kind of more structural, I guess. And then I wonder if
Anyone want to jump in?
Well, sorry, I just wanted to say that for me, when John talks about the idea of distance, for example, and the idea of something more categorical, or is there something between the subjective part of the definition of how we consider aura, if there is something that is more categorical, which I think it is related to what perhaps Benjamin is trying to do, or was trying to do with his definition. For my own personal, it's not that I know a lot about that specifically, that the project of Benjamin, in the idea of having aura, something that has this intrinsic characteristics that is related to something that lingers on, something that is more authentic than the others, and that something that is so like having that, like, so with more distance it becomes less authentic. Yeah, so that's the issue with the when he describes the idea of the technological filtering of the object. The more the technology gets embedded or gets reproduced, the object by technology, there is more distance with such original or with such authentic version of it. So that's how I see it. And that's the structural, almost a structural analysis that Benjamin does of the thing. And I think that the world itself has proven that can be, that works in that direction sometimes. For example, I'm thinking specifically in the ideas of fake news or people interacting online with different facts, like, I don't know, just what happened with elections and a lot of political things or panic around COVID online and different, when through that reproduction of, it is not an artist object. An art object is just information that gets into technology, and then it loses distance with the actual fact, if there is anything like an actual fact. But at the same time, like, are we losing an aura right now because we are doing a streaming online of a panel with ideas with different people in different parts of the world? Is this a reproduction of our own ideas, or are we there? You know, perhaps in the past we would have needed to record this discussion and then put it on, or we have needed to be there in that moment. And now we are here and we are being like interfaced by technology, heavily interfaced by technology. So then the issue of distance becomes really weird and really odd. And I think in that moment it escapes Benjamin definition. That's what I consider. Like in these kind of moments, like after everything we have gone through this year, and since the last 15 years, I guess, or 20 years, since Benjamin wrote that in 36 or something, I think that we can see now that it's not only the distance, and it's not only a strong relationship with a strong relation to an authentic object or to an authentic phenomenon. Sorry, that's what I was going to say. It's a bit too long. Have to warm up my English.
I think you bring up some important things. I mean, I think that problem exists in this in the definition of virtuality as well, and the one you provided, Laura, which I think is emblematic of our common understanding of that, which suggests this spectrum of authenticity, almost or nearly something, as if you are approaching the thing and then or farther away from that thing. And that suggests, of course, that you can attain that in some sense, because of course we are assuming that if we're talking about something virtual, that they are non-identical. They do not share the same identity, so that this spectrum becomes, I think, a serious problem. And I think that's something we deal with in art and in music a lot. I mean, we talk a lot about fidelity when we're talking about sound, and when we're talking about even just kind of more, anytime we're talking about trying to, I mean, anything representational or whatever, we are dealing with this in some form or another, whether it's something we're trying to distance ourselves from or not. And I think it really, it gets really muddy very quickly.
Yeah, that's something I think quite interesting in this moment we are living right now, with all this heavy technology and this distance. It seems like everything is out of context. We have to reframe our world, and we have to experience it in a way that feels really a little bit superficial or fake, in my opinion. Everything is experienced through some distortion. That's how I felt it all this time. We are losing some context, and I think in that sense, I think the aura is a little bit missing. When we are listening to concerts right now, like online concerts, first, the frame is not the same. Normally, we experience the concert with the sound surrounding us at 360 degrees. And now it's just with 2 speakers or headphones, and something is not authentic, even if I don't really like this word and this expression. But also our vision goes through a filter that seems not very natural. Instead of experiencing a work of art and being surrounded by it, our vision has to focus on a very small frame, like small computer screen. But because we cannot really focus at 100% the screen, we had some, we call that visual noise. For example, I can see right now that my desk is a big mess. I have pens everywhere. I have an empty bottle, a coffee cup. I'm not immersed in the discussion like I would be with reality. So that's something I think right now with this situation and this technology, I might agree with Benjamin, and we are losing a little bit the aura. And the question is that necessary, or maybe can we reconstruct another idea of aura? I'm sorry, it was a little bit long.
No, no, it's great. Um, yeah, one thing I wanted to jump in with is it depending on like your I mean, I guess it's subjectivity, but like your a person's state of mind on um just an experience that I had uh doing a live streamed performance um in my living room. It was the first and only live streamed performance I've done this whole time. And I was incredibly nervous, more nervous than I would have ever been if I was doing it live for breathing people in front of me. Um, but also, and that apparently didn't come across to people that were experiencing it. Um, and also, my daughter was just like 3 feet away from me, um, having like a fit, and there was a lot of tension in the room, and um, but I was in this sort of performance mode, and a friend who had seen it, she was like, "Yeah, there's no way I would have known that you were preoccupied with your daughter while you were performing," and the same could be for if I was performing on a stage in front of a live audience. Um, I might be thinking about something else entirely, but not completely present, but the audience wouldn't be aware of that. Um, so I'm wondering if that's at all connected to um, this idea of distance. Any thoughts on that?
It does just make me, I mean, I do think about aura as essentially relational and between things. I mean, even when we I feel like when we talk about these things like visually, and even in that Benjamin quote about the mountain range and the branch, I mean, he even refers to the shadow. Like, we think of these things as kind of extending beyond the range of a physical, its physical state. And I think that that's still kind of anchored in this like centeredness. But I think that when we talk about a performance situation or something, I think that these things really are relational. I mean, between a performer and an audience or whatever. And of course, that whole dynamic has been, I mean, none of us are sure what to do with that. I think that that's something that I don't think it's so clean cut to say it's, this is artificial and it's not, but I think that it's a context that we are all incredibly unfamiliar with and perhaps has all sorts of limitations that might not exist in the future and might change. But I think that the relationship is completely altered, and we don't know. I don't think we have our own technologies yet, our personal technologies to make sense of that in a lot of ways, the same way that we have been conditioned to for thousands of years. And when we're talking about performance, live performance together in the space.
So you think, is that the future then? Is humans need to evolve to
Well, I don't,
technology?
I hope not. I hope not. I mean, I don't like this any more than anyone else, but I guess I don't see it as like categorically, I think that the strangeness of it is, I think the lack of authenticity we feel or and we kind of project onto this situation is largely we're not trained for this. We don't, you know, I can't read you in the same way that I could, sitting across from you. And, and when we talk about fidelity, like, the capability of my laptop microphone and camera and all these things, like, I mean, when we're talking about us as humans, we're talking about the same kind of technological limits in our own biology and everything. But that's something that we've, evolved and trained for the history of our species.
Yeah, there is something that's I want just to react when you said about your laptop, its capacity, and the camera. There's something that struck me a little bit, and I'm thinking more and more of this question, is that isn't virtuality emphasizing social inequalities? I think if we take the example of live performance, when we are all in a room attending a live concert, I think we are more or less equal in front of this performance. We will have very slight differences depending on where we are seated, but it would be very slight differences. But in terms of virtuality, I think it's emphasized inequalities by 1,000. Depending on the quality of my headphones, and right now my headphones are not very good. It's second-hand headphones. I have this buzzing sound in my left ear. So I'm not having a wonderful experience that maybe someone that has $1,000 headphones will enjoy more, or someone with a more stable and faster internet connection will have. Maybe someone will not be able to see the picture in HD and has to downgrade the quality. So that can be a problem with virtuality. And that's something that is bothering me more and more today.
Mm. Sergio, did you have something to say?
I was thinking in two points. First was your question, Laura, when you asked John that means that we are evolving. I don't think that it is evolving. I think that we are, or perhaps it is evolving. I think that we have been faced with a situation that we are not used to. That I have two sides, like I have two positions towards that. A side of me says, okay, this has shown us an immense potential of communication, of different. I was thinking the other day in how like the possibility, the networking possibility, the connection of possibilities to bringing people together. I'm doing together because I'm really not sure that it's together. I'm just envisioning this utopical virtuality in which we are all happy, like kind of a Star Trek thing or something like that. But still, you know, like I remember once, like several years ago, talking to a colleague saying like, hey, it would be cool if if a composition festival or something, they have people from all over the world and you don't have to pay the ticket if you get invited to it. You can just participate in panels. I remember telling this to this colleague of mine. Like sometimes, for example, this our circuit of music, the way we do music is heavily restricted by, similar to Jean Patrick, what he was saying, is heavily restricted by the travel capacities, which are way more expensive, of course, guarding proportions of economic access to plugging in from another place into the internet. Of course, that second part, the internet and the access to internet technology, also has its economic access and precarity side, but it's not like, I don't know, like paying a flight to Bangkok or to New York if you live, for example, in, I don't know, like Bariloche or in La Paz, Bolivia. I don't know, I'm just saying one random place. Yeah. So I think that, I don't know if it is evolving, but what I think is at some point we cannot see how this forced situation, because at the beginning, I think because as John says, we were all like, okay, before the pandemic and everything was like, let's use this, it's not really effective, but still let's use it. And there was some usage, but now is the boom of the thing. And we cannot envision how that will change things actually in the, like we will see this in 10 years perhaps. I think perhaps. But uh, I, I I think it invites us to to consider these spaces. My side is to say, okay, let's consider these virtual spaces as something real, as something that has an aura of itself, perhaps. That's one side of me. And the other side of me says, no, let's not, let's fight this, let's fight against that. Let's fight against this. We should try to avoid it, and we should go back to live concerts and try to reactivate the music scenes of the countries and cultural scenes, etc. So I'm between the two of them. I don't know yet. Sometimes I think combination of both. I don't know. Depends on the day. But also saying about the precarity, I think that what JP says, Jean Patrick says, is it is related. Okay, when we are in a concert, and I will have to disagree with that. I think that when we are in a concert too, we bring all that too. We bring all that precarity. First, we have to reach the concert. Once when we are there, we have gone through a lot of economic privilege filters or non-economic or different filters, codes, whatever, to get to the concert. And then the way we appreciate it, the question is, the key, how I see it, it is perhaps it is not about fidelity, like direct fidelity. It's not about the device. It is not about the laptop. It is not about the headphones. It is about personal stories. Yeah. And cultural stories. Just to say that sometimes in the virtuality, we overcome the idea of the fidelity. Those personal stories linger on, but we can bring them closer because we have this. But again, the question is, if it is real, how real it is, how the interaction it is. That's the huge question. And that's a huge reflection, I think, that perhaps we are not able to solve more than just throw to the air our ideas.
I wanted to bring up like the assumption that the real experience is the preferred experience. I'm constantly disappointed with reality. Like And yeah, you could go to a concert and sit next to someone who's snoring, who's like sleeping through the whole thing and not like appreciating what you're listening to, um, in the way that you hope they would be, um, and ruin the whole experience. Whereas if you're listening to a recording of it or a streamed version of it, you have control over how you experience it. Um, any thoughts on that disappointment of reality?
I don't, well, disappointment isn't necessarily my, where I go immediately, but I do think about, you know, we had spoken in brief before about field recording, and I think about this a lot in terms of dealing with this process of documentation and translation, and that, of course, you know, for me, when I'm making a field recording, I don't, most of the time I'm not really interested in bringing that space to someone else and trying to kind of bring some, I don't know, because of course, if I were interested in the experience of that place in a real way, I would just go back to that place and have that experience. But when you make a field recording, you are taking some slice, applying, you know, this an array of filters, and it's a completely transformed and changed document that has a relationship to that place, but is of course a totally distinct existence and presence of its own. And for me, I guess the more I can heighten that distance, I don't know, that's kind of where I really try and kind of divorce this question of reality in terms of that kind with that kind of work. The more I can separate from that question, the more productive I think those kinds of explorations are for me.
Is separating from reality, like, are we using sound to escape from a kind of reality or create a new reality through our music? One thought that comes to mind is the composer Eva Maria Hubin. She writes about creating sub-realities, which is based on a philosophy. I forget the name of the philosopher, but sub-realities are created during the musical experience. And I think what she means by that is she also talks about transparencies of worlds. So like the musical moment, the world that's created in the creation of music in a performance, say, and then the real world outside of that performance, and how those two worlds sort of melt together, and there's a transparency between the two, where they're each one of the other. Do people have similar feelings about music creation in that way. Another reality happening.
In my personal way of seeing it, I see it as not surreal. I surreality. Although I love the description of transparency and how the two worlds just overlap, and I think it is beautiful. I love it. But in my own experience, like making on or playing and going to concerts and whatever, or listening to music, I think that my experience with that is just that music highlights reality, like brings forth everything that creates reality. It's like, for example, in the example that you were saying, Laura, about the person snoring next to you, like that part, that thing is like the whole concert situation highlights that, like that societal interaction with the person that is next to you. It could be awesome, it could be everyone focused and just like this energy, like everyone is like, yeah. Or it can be the guy like snoring. But both things are part of reality. Yeah, that's how I see it. Or it could be like the intense focus, or it could be dancing, for example, like dancing in a concert, or dancing in a salsa bar, or dancing a techno in a rave, and all these things, all these processes highlight what we live in, I guess. So that's how I see it.
There was a moment in time with the headphone rave. Do you all remember that? When people would like wear headphones and dance like by themselves, basically. That's, I don't know if that happens anymore, but
It happens in Ithaca and it's really cool. Well, I haven't
oh
done it.
really?
I have seen it.
Actually,
Yeah.
I attended a concert by Matmos. I don't know if you know the group Matmos, but it was at the Los Angeles Historic uh, Museum of Natural History, and there's these beautiful what are they called, dioramas of like, these virtual representations of scenes in the wild, um, and the so the concert was happening in there, and it was a headphone concert, and Matmos was performing, and there was a tuba player as well, and everyone was mic'd, and they were playing extremely, extremely quietly on these instruments, including the tuba. I could not believe how quietly he was playing. And we were, and they told you to bring a headphone splitter. And so you would split off, and then other people would join on. And so there's this like network of strangers all connected through these headphone splitters. Experiencing this concert that was happening like right in front of us, like 5 feet in front of us, but through headphones. And like those layers, it was just so surreal, because you had like those dioramas, and then you had Matmos actually there, and then you had all these people experiencing this thing together, but in their own worlds. That was bizarre. I don't know where I was going with that, but just
No, you can say that sounds like Eva Maria's version of listening, like made real. Like that is, yeah, like you have like super, like um overlaying of of different worlds, like are transparent because they share things, but at the same time they're different because you're in their headphones. It's kind of more material representation of Eva Maria's points, I think, perhaps.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I had one note. The saying "unreal," like, oh, it was unreal when people describe something. Um, that's usually a positive thing, right? Or maybe it's not. I guess it could be either. Any thoughts about that?
What I mean, I don't know. I don't have much thought. I guess I think of that as kind of a moment of an expansion of the real, where it exceeds the boundaries of your previous notion of reality, I guess. So I guess the way I think about that.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Piawat was like, he wanted us to talk about, well, he was curious about like our compositional process and how it relates to these words and ideas. We only have 10 minutes, but if anyone has something they want to say that's related to their practice.
I guess, I mean, that what you described at the Matmos concert, it's that image, or the image I have of that event is described as really beautiful to me, because I think what it highlights kind of the that we are always living in virtual reality in a sense, of course, and this layeredness of our experience, which is individuated and collective, of course, which I mean, you know, in my work, this kind of process of doing you know, spectral and harmonic analysis in like multiple stages over the same field recording until you're going from a full noise spectrum down to, you know, 3 or 4 frequencies, and changing that, I guess, is an extreme version of that layeredness I mean, something of the distance that I was speaking to earlier that is really important to me. But I don't know, I guess in the course of this discussion, I've been really thinking about the physical importance of some of these things we've been talking about in virtuality, and Jean-Patrick was talking about the implications of, you know, just access technology and all these things that and in live performance, in live situations, and of course, you know, Sergio mentioned the issues with that as well. But there are, even when you just assume, when you take the selection of people who are there in a room together or in a space together, there is, as artificial as a concert situation is already, there's still an inarguable agency of physical presence that you cannot completely, you know, deny. And a body presents itself, and you cannot, when it, you know, once it's there, you can't deny that. And I think that some of that disconnect that we are experiencing now has to do with that. I mean, that just the amount of mediation that is existing. Anyway, there's no end to that thought, but
Anybody else? I had one thought. I guess I really am like a romantic at heart, and maybe an egotist, because because when I think about, when I was thinking about aura and my practice, I was thinking like, you know, what do I want listeners to hear when they listen to my music, and I want them to hear me, like my aura, like is there something in the music that when someone hears it, they know that it's me. And I, in my artist statement that we had to write for Marianti's class, well, we should all have artist statements, but I was saying how the diffusion of sound from the musicians is the diffusion of myself. Like I really see the sound as an extension of me. And yeah, I was just curious if anyone else has thought of their creation of artistic works as extension of themselves, if it contains their aura, or does that not matter?
I think that for my own experience, I acknowledge that I cannot deny that I think that it is there regardless of what I will do. But I try to minimize in some way. I don't know, in different ways. There are like different ways to pursue that. I try to minimize my aura from the pieces.
Is it ego though, or aura? I think
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. That's a good question. Because it's a presence. So it's a presence. If they're, I don't know, maybe both are related. You know, like ego and aura are. I'm not saying like the ego as something bad. I'm just saying that is like part of our constructions as personas, whatever.
yeah.
And maybe that is also related to that thing that lingers on that remains or that extends our physical experience or something in the work of art. Some people might say it is the voice. That's the
Right.
voice of a composer. It's something that I really don't like when someone says that has developed their own voice. I'm just like intense, but that happens. It happens a lot, and I think we cannot escape that. I think it is unescapable. And although it is unescapable, I try to escape it. Maybe I'm being naive and losing my time in efforts that doesn't lead to anyone, that don't lead to anything. But I like to work on that and trying to find these ways, you know, and maybe live in that paradox. Yeah, that's my approach to that.
Oh, I got a note from Piawat. We should wrap up. Anyone have final words? Jean Petzli, did you want to jump in there before we part ways?
Just very, very quickly to answer your question. I think personally, I never really thought of that, and I think it's really instinctive. So maybe I put my aura, and maybe music is an extension of myself, but it's something I never really thought about, and it's totally in my inconscience that might be dictate that. I should try to focus more on that and maybe think more about it. What is really the aura? What is the ego? Or as Sergio said, what is the voice? Which is, I actually do not like this expression either.
Well, thank you, everyone. This was great. Hopefully we can have another talk like this, but in person and with some alcohol.
Thank you,
All
Laura.
right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Nice.
Laura. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
everyone.
All right. Good night. Good day.
Good night.